Good afternoon. This is day 93 of Ukrainian fight for freedom, and this is Mediacentru Ukraine. Our next guest today is Rudik, member of Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. We are going to talk about the main diplomatic event of the week. So this is World Economic Forum in Davos. Kira had a chance to personally visit forum, and she is the eyewitness of what was happening there. So what are your impressions of the event? This forum was a very Ukrainian forum, and this is for the first time in its history it was dedicated entirely to Ukraine. On the other hand, we can ask ourselves a question, what else can it be dedicated to? Because the economy of the world and the future of each country of the world is closely related to the issue of the war of Ukraine. These were the questions asked at the backstage, and the answer was it depends on you as well. It depends on how united you are and how united your efforts are. You, as representatives of Indonesia, for example, help Ukraine and do not sponsor Russia. It will also depend on you, the representatives of EU countries, and how you expedite the process of acceding Ukraine to the EU. How you can help us now and in the nearest future so that we convert Russia into the new Northern Korea. I believe that the impressions were the most positive, and now it's the best chance to get what we need the most. World leaders and the world countries were not prepared for the marathon. They thought it would be sprint. They thought that the war would finish soon, but our main task is to prepare to long-term work. On the other hand, we should avoid turning the war in Ukraine into a new norm, into the done thing, because when we get adjusted to having the war going on in our country, then it will be harder and harder to expect help from other countries. Our main objective for us, all Ukrainians, diplomats, economists, technological companies, representatives, businesses that came to Davos to support us, organizers of Ukrainian Home in Davos, we all met the objectives that we need to work hard because this war can be long lasting, and today is the time to act. We have to be decisive. If we want the next forum in Davos to be dedicated to rebuilding Ukraine, to the positive things that have always been on the agenda of World Economic Forum, then it's time to act now. We read the Kissinger's article, we read the Italian plan for the end of this war. How can we make sure that this war ends in our victory and not the Kissinger's plan or Italian plan? What should we do in order to make sure that Ukraine wins this war? In any situation, under any circumstances, there will always be people who will be making, let's say, inappropriate statements or statements that represent the opinion of minority. Of course, everybody would want to have a simple solution to a complex problem. Why don't you give up on your territories and the war will end? But we understand that it will not, and it's not what we want. I mean, giving up on our territories. Kissinger and Italian plan have been criticized by not only Ukrainians, but also EU country representatives, Poland, and they said that it's nonsense. This plan has nothing to do with reality. Our plan is simple. It hasn't changed since the start of the war. We need more weapons. We need harsher sanctions, more severe sanctions in order to put pressure on the Russia. We are going to keep fighting and win. So we don't have any other objectives on our agenda. And with each and every step, we prove that our plan is effective. Other plans proved their inefficiency and failure. That's why we stick to our plan and we keep moving forward. And I will reiterate again that there is no other option. There is no virtual unique plan, genuine plan that can solve the complex issue that Russia wants to restore the Russian Empire. The only way we can handle Russia is to fight with this, and this is what we are doing. The world can help, and they are helping. Will there be people who will try to capitalize on it, get additional political support, like Mr. Kissinger? Probably yes, but I believe that it also helps to draw attention to Ukrainian situation. And you know that lots of people stepped in and they supported Ukraine after these statements of Mr. Kissinger. You mentioned that there is a danger that the war might become routine thing. How can we prevent this? We have to keep communicating and work with the key stakeholders. We have to work hard on a daily basis. You understand that miracles don't happen. We sometimes believe that only bad things happen by themselves, but you have to work hard to make good things happen. That's why we have to knock on every door. We have to talk to stakeholders. We have to convince them that the war has to be ended soon. We have to share the information about the atrocities committed by the Russian troops in Ukraine, Russian soldiers. And this can also prevent from perceiving war as the norm. This is the job of the politicians, of diplomats, of every Ukrainian citizen temporarily residing abroad, those who are fighting at the front line, who are not fighting at the front line, who are staying at home. So we all have to make sure that the world knows the truth, what's happening in Ukraine, so that the world does not become indifferent to what's happening in Ukraine, so that they do not get used to it, and that the war does not turn into routine. What can help this is communication, ongoing communication. I'm in London at the moment, and I have a series of meetings with media, with our partners. Next week, I'm going to keep working in Great Britain, so that making sure that people know that Ukrainians keep dying in Ukraine while the war goes on. I know that there was a representative at the meeting with the representatives of big business, big companies. You said that we not only need to win, but also rebuild our country after the victory. Is there an understanding who is going to help us and how they are going to help us? I will be honest, the question is even more accurate. So, do we need help after Ukraine wins the war or immediately? Investors keep saying that you have to win the war first, and then we will help you rebuild your country and build your cities. But we say that we need help now, because economy, it's something that nourishes the war, that helps our army. We need to start rebuilding our country today, not after we win this war, because it might take years. Therefore, our task was to convince the investors that we need investment now, we need support now. We talked to Google, Amazon, Facebook, Salesforce. We talked to infrastructural companies in charge of construction business. We were talking about the possible investments that might be made into Ukraine right now. My argument was simple. You keep investing into Israel. you understand that the risks are higher. Plus, Israel is a much smaller country territorially, and the risk of a missile hitting any object is much higher. They said, yes, we understand this. We understand that the situation might be long lasting. Still, we need to enter the market at some point. I say this some point is now, because if we keep waiting the end of the active hostilities or active shelling from the air, so then it might take eternity. We need to protect our skies so that we can say for sure that here we can start rebuilding our country, because this is where our anti-defense works the best. But it'll take time. We might play on the emotions of the investors, because we want to make sure that they understand they don't want to be second or third who enter our market. So they want to be the first. They want to be able to take the risk and start working just the way they work in Israel and other high-risk countries. But the results of the risks are also going to be much higher, and this is also understandable, because the emotions that accompany the situation in Ukraine are powerful. And this is something that's going to help us rebuild our country and make a breakthrough, because we keep receiving help, we keep receiving investments at the moment. There are a lot of preliminary arrangements. I'm not ready to talk about them right now for obvious reasons, but the implementation of those arrangements will depend directly on how fast certain territories will be marked as safe, so that the projects can embark there, or we can clearly formulate the risks that exist on those territories. In any way, I believe that support is needed before the end of the active hostilities phase. In summation, does international community understand that there is the problem of Russia, and this is the global problem for the whole world? And does the world or global community understand the place of Russia in the future? The world community, even if they realize what the place of Russia is in the future, we already have the answer for this. Russia is the new North Korea that no one wants to deal with. It's toxic by definition. It's the country that has become quite weak recently, and we should not strengthen it. We should not take any step to strengthen it. We understand that the whole world wins when Russia loses. The number of stakeholders interested in weakening Russia and existing in this weakened state is huge. And we need to make sure that we keep exerting pressure, putting pressure on Russia. We have an issue which is called tentative South. So this is Asia, Latin America, Africa. So these countries, unfortunately, see Russia as their partner. And this is the issue that we need to address. We need to work with those countries to prevent making Russia their new market where they can sell their oil, grain, etc. We have to work on the diplomatic field, but elite and the most developed countries in the world, they're all negative towards Russia. They understand that Russia threatens the whole democratic world, civilized world, and they understand that in 3 months we've made what the world has been trying to make for decades but failed to do so. So the steps have been made, and now we have only to keep forward, no backward. Even the representatives of Hungary agreed that the sanctions against Russia and its oil have to be agreed. The price is going to be huge, but I understand the sanctions will be imposed and no one is going to step back. We all understand that the stakes are very high. We cannot let Putin believe that we are ready to withdraw, because dictators, they feel when their opponents are getting weak. And if the civilized world stays strong, then we won't have to get back to where we were before. You know, when the competing athlete keeps training and he needs to, once he has achieved a certain level of fitness and athletic fitness, so he needs to keep training in order to make sure that he stays fit. Thank you very much, Kira. So just a reminder, our guest was Kira Rudik, the member of Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, who shared her impressions of Ukraine's participation at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Our next guest will be Yulia Zhovtyak, director at the State Employment Service of Ukraine. We will be talking about war, employment, and unemployment.